So here we are, the unmade stories of the First Doctor, Season 4. And, this is going to be a weird one. As these Unmade Stories videos, I script them to be more than just a retrospective analysis on the narrative ideas that fell by the wayside. I also use those ideas as a springboard to discuss whether the respective seasons that they would have ended up in could have been improved by their presence. And I'm trying to think somewhat realistically here. Like, I can't just increase the story count of a season to accommodate them, considering those things were already being produced all year round, were barely getting by on a budgetary level, and the main actors were absolutely wrecked by the rehearsals and tight scheduling. Hey, even these ideal fantasy seasons can't be too ideal, you know what I'm saying? If I'm inviting an unmade story into existing, then I have to kick out an already existing one. That's the rule I've set up for myself here. The thing with Season 4 though, is that the First Doctor only has two stories, The Smugglers and The 10th Planet, the former of which was actually a holdover from Season 3's production block, while the latter is, well, the regeneration story, and also introduces one of the franchise's most iconic villainous races. Ergo, right off the bat, we've established that both of these serials were created under pretty specific conditions, which mean that I can't really replace either of them. Plus, if I did replace the Smugglers, a certain other Universal member would beat my ass for it. So no matter how good some of these unmade story concepts are, considering the circumstances, I already can't say that I'd give any of them their time to shine. But still, that doesn't mean we can't do the due diligence of at least taking a look at them, so let's do that. We start off with The Clock, a story to be written by David Ellis. The plot would have been about... I've got nothing. Well, TARDIS Wiki says it had something to do with a clock-like object that could control the flow of time, but no sources on that bad boy, so dunno about that one. Either way, script editor Jerry Davis rejected it in April 1966, though Ellis did go on to co-write The Faceless Ones with Malcolm Hulke, so that's nice. Next up, we have The Evil Eye, which would have been scripted by Jeffrey Orme. The story would have concerned... Wait, what? Seriously? Again? Huh, that's weird. Well, script editor Jerry Davis turned this down in April 66 as well, so that put an end to that. Orme did go on to write The Underwater Menace though, so good for him. Well, next, we have a couple of submissions by English writer George F. Kerr, a man who, in Roger Dixon fashion, would never successfully get his foot in the door in writing a televised Doctor Who story, but it's nice that he tried. Anyway, his first submitted idea was The Hearsay Machine, which features... Oh, come on. Why does this keep happening? Well, his second idea was the intriguingly titled The Heavy Scent of Violence, and I'm sure the plot synopsis is very absorbent. Are you kidding me? One other idea of his was called The Man from the Met, and it's about... You're kidding me. Nope, literally, the only thing known about these three plot submissions is the fact that he submitted them in April 66, and Jerry Davis rejected them in June. I'm stunned. Okay, in all fairness, there were a few ideas submitted to the production team that we do know some substantial details about. For example, the previously mentioned David Ellis submitted another story idea called The Ocean Liner, and we actually do know a little something about its premise. It would have been a spy thriller. Enthralling. I mean, TARDIS Wiki once again has some potential plot information, but again, I have no idea where it's pulling that from, so take it with a pinch of salt. But Jerry Davis rejected it in April 1966, telling Ellis, according to a special DWM issue, that Doctor Who is rather specialised in its type of material. Kind of an underhanded way of telling someone that their suggestion is basic, but alright. But Ellis wasn't done yet, as he and Malcolm Hulke tried conceiving a story idea together, and before they would later hit gold with The Faceless Ones, they brought a concept to the table entitled The People Who Couldn't Remember. And once again, we do have a scrap of plot information about this entry. It would have been a satire. They're feeding us so good right now. Well, Gerry Davis turned it down in June 1966, this time for a rather specific reason, because the light-hearted serial The Gunfighters had recently dropped and proved very unpopular with audiences, and so he was reluctant to greenlight another comedic adventure. Which, I get his reasoning, but those audiences were wrong and The Gunfighters is lit, so whatever. Around this time, Brian Hales was commissioned to write a historical entitled The Nazis. Once again, we know nothing about it aside from what the title suggests, and script editor Gerry Davis got cold feet about the idea in June because the subject matter was a bit too recent, and Brian Hales was put onto writing The Smugglers instead, making Benjamin Windibank of the Universals very happy indeed.
How you doing?
Okay, for real though, these last three unmade story ideas do actually tell us something of substance, so it's probably a good thing that I saved them for last. And coincidentally, I've actually talked about two of these before. But first I'm going to discuss what is easily the most outlandish of them. So, Eric Laithwaite, a British heavy electrical engineer and professor at the Imperial College London, approached the Doctor Who production team in 1966 about potentially becoming their scientific advisor, but he would ultimately lose out to Kit Pedler. But shortly after, Laithwaite wrote a single episodic script and submitted it to the production team anyways. Entitled simply A New Dalek Adventure on the page, the plot would have concerned the Doctor, Stephen and Dodo facing off against what appears to be the Daleks, except it turns out what they are actually confronting is an all-powerful extra-dimensional intelligence that can manipulate atoms and become whatever form it likes. It expresses its abilities by transforming into a number of things, one of them being a grassy field on which they play a game of football against the Doctor. Imagine the gall of writing a story where frail-ass William Hartnell plays football. I'm in awe of this idea. Well, it was rejected for a pretty obvious reason. Well, besides that one. But Laithwaite wrote this script to involve the Daleks without asking permission from their creator, Terry Nation. So, oopsie. He didn't take the rejection personally though. In fact, the experience would go on to inspire him during his future lectures, which is honestly kind of inspiring to know. Anyway, the next story idea was intended to be a four-parter called The Herdsmen of Aquarius, alternatively The Herdsmen of Venus, to be written by Donald Cotton, and the core plot point would have been about exploring the origins of the Loch Ness Monster and potentially revealing that it's an example of Venusian cattle. That's kind of out of line from what I expected, considering he'd previously written exclusively comedic pure historicals. Well, either way, it was considered unsuitable for the creative direction that Gerry Davis and producer Innes Lloyd wanted to take the show in. I guess there wasn't room in this season for a four-part serial that explores the deep blue depth of mystery surrounding a watery Earth-based myth. Oh, sorry, I don't know what came over me just then. Also, Terror of the Zygons and Time Lash would go on to explore the Loch Ness Monster idea anyways. Let's wrap this up. And finally, to link into my previous trilogy of videos about the unmade Second Doctor stories, a four-part serial idea submitted by Brian Hales, christened The Hounds of Time. The plot would have involved Ben and Polly's kidnap at the hands of robotic hunters, two of many abductions which they have performed on humans throughout all of history, taking them to their masters on the planet Terran. With the Doctor in pursuit, he discovers a lab set up there, with a scientist and his warlord determining which point in the Earth's history it would be the most optimal to invade. Hales apparently came up with this concept around the same time when he was writing The Smugglers, and because of the transition transitional period the show was undertaking at the time, it was loosely defined to fit either William Hartnell's outgoing First Doctor or Patrick Troughton's incoming Second. The idea only ever reached this brief outline though, with it never being seriously considered for a slot in the season and no scripts being produced. And if you want to know why I think that's for the best, check out the Season 4 video in my Unmade Stories of the Second Doctor series. Nice segue there, I hope. And that wraps up the Unmade Stories of the First Doctor, and like with the Second Doctor, I think they're kind of a mixed bag. A lot of the time in the 60s, the right stories ended up on the small screen, but there are a few really decent hidden gems buried in the margins of the show's existence that probably deserved their chance to shine. But that's not the reality we live in. Oh well. Still, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.